basically, give me a little background on yourself and how you got involved with, or not, well, I mean, it's your project, but how you came to do FireBrand.
All right, so I guess you would say my metal journey kind of started when I was 13, and I got hooked on bands like Paramecium, Mortification, Tourniquet, Living Sacrifice, all of the legends within the Christian metal realm. And I wanted to start a band from that point. I just, for 12 years though, I would always end up trying to form a band and never having a full lineup, either because the people who had interest in joining were terrible at playing instruments, or people were good at playing instruments, but they had character that would not line up with the vision that I had for it. It wasn't until I was about 16 or 17 when I get this friend request out of nowhere from this guy in Canada. And turns out he was looking for somebody else named Josiah and got the wrong one, but that started a long distance project called Placate the Masses that still kind of does stuff today, because of distance and everything like that. And just the fact that we've taken on more responsibilities as we've gotten out of like high school and college and have gone into the real world. Just things aren't able to be as done as much as that we used to, but I still had the drive to make music and everything. And especially get to the point where I could get to playing shows and interacting with people and preaching the gospel from that platform, on a macro level from the stage and from a personal level and in face-to-face interactions. So I had the idea of doing an industrial project or something of the sort for a while. And after coming up with, first I came up with a symbol, and then I came up with the name FireBrand. And then once I found out exactly what I needed to get started with writing my own songs and recording on even an amateur scale, I got to work, and the rest is history.
Did you, what drove you to do industrial? Like, how did you get introduced to that? Because, I mean, that's not always, how old are you?
25.
See, I'm 48. There was a period when I was younger where industrial was like the cool thing.
Yeah.
New wave industrial, that sort of thing. For a 25-year-old, that seems interesting because industrial's not quite as hip or happening, as you would say,
Yeah.
as it was back in the day.
Yeah.
How did you get introduced to that?
Around the same time that I was getting into, your well-known Christian metal legends and everything like that. My dad is mostly responsible for showing me the bands that I've got into today, from decades past, and that still carry a lot of influence over to what I do now. And so on the heels of showing me people like Living Sacrifice and Mortification, he also showed me Circle of Dust, Argyle Park, Clank, Mortal, Chatterbox, all of the folks that were from that little pocket of industrial artists that were involved or related to the REX family that was going on at the time. And I remember the Argyle Park Misguided album was my springboard into that and got me into industrial music. And I've always been a fan of hybrid genres of music because it's just it creates less limits. It's a better breeding ground for creativity, in my opinion. And so that was always kind of seeded in me. And then as I started to become more aware of, I became more aware of like Cell Dweller stuff, who was Circle of Dust and became Cell Dweller in the 2000s. In 2015, I wanted to revisit some old Circle of Dust stuff, and I looked up on YouTube and found Circle of Dust was coming back. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then I find out all that Clayton was doing throughout the 2000s up to this point. And I'm watching his videos, his production tutorials, and how he broke down how how he makes his electronic rock tracks, and I remember thinking I could do that. And so I got what minimal gear I needed to get started, and that was, yeah. And the industrial made production and everything feels so accessible because everybody understands that it's already programmed and stuff
Right.
like that for the most part. So it seemed like that was, I guess, the genre that was the most easiest in my reach, so to say.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Okay. Did you were you familiar with like the very, very industrial stuff like Dietophobia, Massive Vivid, the stuff that was like really electronic, like no guitars?
Yeah, I was kind of familiar with those. Um, it took me a little while to get into the stuff that had like, yeah, had no guitars and very little dynamics and everything, because I like dynamics, and it could just because I'm an American or whatever. But it's funny because I'm seeing like where I've been in the talks with a couple of industrial artists from across on the Eastern Hemisphere, and their in European industrial is very different in that sense. Um,
Yeah.
Most of that's the distinguishing feature. But between getting introduced and then getting on board with and actually like becoming a fan of those like raw industrial acts, that's taken me a little bit to get into, but I'm digging those nowadays.
Yeah, I've been talking with, I think I've probably been talking to the same guy as you have been, like FTH.
Yeah.
Yeah, see that stuff, that's what I started listening to, was like
Mm.
that kind of stuff, which is more like frontline assembly, front
Yeah.
242. Um, that's what Dietophobia was. It was
Yeah.
it was basically more along those lines. Um, but yeah, the basically, I mean, I'm going to ask a few questions that are kind of off the beaten path,
Okay.
probably for you. Um, I'll start off though with an easy one. What sort of music do you listen to on your own, and who's your favorite artist if you had to pick one?
Okay. So as far as what I listen to personally, I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff within the genre that I do write in, but I do listen to stuff outside of that as well. I listen to your raw metal across all subgenres, and that's what I'm most passionate about. However, I can be caught listening to um, some pop, electronic, and stuff like that. Um, Not country or rap. That just doesn't quite resonate with me. But most other genres of music, I can be found listening to those every now and then. I can definitely tell you that I guess is one of my favorite bands. Got to be Demon Hunter. Um, Between their blend of melody and brutality that they've made their own, and the variety that they have, it's really easy to find something that you're in the mood for whenever you're looking at those guys' catalogs. So,
Right. Have you heard Trading for Utopia?
yes.
What do you think about their second record, the which I refer to as their industrial record?
That was something, man. It's like I was more or less just blown away that Ryan Clark was involved in that stuff, and I was thinking, it makes sense now that he did a project called Knives, and
Yeah,
went that sort of direction.
right. Yeah, he's always kind of been into that stuff, man. That like the industrial, like kind of offbeat stuff.
Yeah,
The same with Jesse from Zayo.
yeah,
What he's doing now, that new project he's doing,
yeah. What was it called again?
Serpent Slave,
Okay, okay,
which is
yeah,
great. It's great stuff, but it's totally anybody who knows him is not surprised that he's doing that.
yeah.
Because I mean, he's been into that stuff for years. Um, what if you were like, who's your favorite? Do you have a favorite superhero? And if you
Favorite
do, who would it be and
superhero?
why?
Gosh, it's kind of a tough one because I've fluctuated between favorites over the years, but I guess I guess the one that's been the most consistent for me as far as coming back as a favorite would probably be Batman. Just because of what he represents as a person who is, he's human, but he's pushed himself to the limits and has brought his achievements to be right on par there with people who have superpowers and are of this very otherworldly origin.
All right. If you had to choose one movie or TV series to watch, what would it be?
I gotta say the Daredevil series from Netflix.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Because, and here's a big reason why. Because see, I've got something interesting about me is I've got a degree in TV and film. And so when I watch stuff, I'm looking at fine details because I'm trained to be able to produce that and notice that stuff. And one of the things that I think really, really made it for me, the Daredevil series is phenomenal. In many respects, the acting's great, the cinematography's great, writing and so forth, it's great. But the fight scenes are really what gets me. The fight scenes are totally engaging because it's people who know how to fight, and then they just have the camera stick back and you watch them fight. And I remember watching season 3 where it's the first time that Matt Murdock and Dex duke it out in the bulletin, and I was at the edge of my seat. And I can't remember the last time I had watched a fight scene in a movie that was like that. And that's because everybody cuts on every freaking hit. And it's so boring.
Yeah, that show my son introduced me to. I'm into superheroes, but I just never got a chance to watch it. And I was pretty surprised at how brutal the Punisher stuff was. Even in comparison to the movies, because the movies I thought were pretty brutal, but then the series came along and I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
But I like the element of brutality that some of these superheroes are getting, because it just feels authentic to their character. I feel like Logan was the best Wolverine movie that has been made, and even though it's hard to watch sometimes because of the themes that it shows, it's real, it's the graphics and the graphic violence and the language and everything is not obligatory. There's a reason for it, and at the same time the fact that they were unrestrained in what they did made it to where that movie felt more authentic and more engaging than the previous Wolverine installments.
I don't even need to ask this question, but I'm going to anyway, so you can expand. Would you consider yourself a religious or spiritual person, and how does that affect your career choices overall? Like, I don't know what you do besides work with music. I don't know what your career or what you do working wise, but how does religion and your Christianity affect you with all
that? It's my faith in Jesus has impacted me definitely on a personal level, mostly because it goes beyond whatever happened at the initial point of receiving Jesus and the changes that happened in that startup stage. The biggest things for me actually was because I'd grown up in a Christian community and church and didn't have it forced on me, so I actually came to receive it on my own terms, at my own pace, and received it with enthusiasm. Hardships would come later on, my parents' divorce and, a lot of maladjustments that would be happening through adolescence, and, a lot of dumb decisions that I made during that time as well. And, some other things that happened that were really scarring that either would have been on my part or weren't. But about around the early 20s for me was when, this girl that I thought I was going to marry, her and I broke up, and that gave me time to really focus on my relationship with the Lord. I ran to him kind of first as a security blanket because I really didn't know what to do at this point. And at that new point of dedication put me in a place to where I'm actually getting to hear the Lord for myself, meeting him over his word and his spirit. And much to my surprise, I realized I had issues that I needed to work out personally. And I asked the Lord to work the change in me. And so he took me on this path of facing a lot of the wounds that I had as a kid, and a lot of the wrong perspectives I had harbored for such a long time because of, the thinking that came from, the unfortunate things that happen in life, and because of the hurts that I had. And it was very uncomfortable, but because I trusted the Lord and knew that he wanted to bring me on the other side of this. He wanted to make me a healed man, and a man that's far more in line with the design that he's got for all of us. I went with him through it, and I had depression, anxiety. I had a really bad performance mentality where if I'm not perfect, nobody's going to love me, God, man, or anybody else. I used to have a really bad pornography addiction. And I was stuck in that for like 11 years. And because the Lord is actually present with each of us and makes himself very accessible, I'm now, free and healed from all that stuff, and I'm more secure in who I am and have a far greater direction for my life. And so to one degree or another, and that affects, everything that I do, because it's so much of who I am today. So evangelism is not a thing that I do. It's just more of this who I am. Lord will come up in conversations, and I don't have to force it, and I don't have to think of, oh, how do I bring up Jesus? If I talk about what I love to do, if I talk about things I'm interested in, or if I just talk about my life, Jesus is going to show up, and people are going to get to know that he's real, he's powerful. And that extends to the lyrics that I write in my music. That extends to how I build my interactions with people, and any other artistic expression that I get involved in. That's where it'll show up in there one way or another.
Good. Okay. That's great. Talk a little bit about your live band.
Okay.
Like how does that go about? Are they members, or are they just people that you kind of bring along with you when you're?
It's a little more of their live band that are there for the live aspect of it all. And yeah, there's time. My lead guitarist is also in many ways a session musician as well. I am decent at guitar. I learned guitar more out of a necessity. I'm a vocalist primarily, but when I was first starting FireBrand and figuring out what to do, I knew I needed to learn guitar. So I worked on building skills from a basic level up to where I'm at now. But my buddy Graham, who's my lead guitarist for the live setup, he's been playing longer than I've been alive, and the dude can play the fire out of the guitar. So if I need a solo, especially like in some songs that are going to be coming up on my upcoming album called Beat the Machine, there's going to be some really cool and shredding solos on there that just add a whole new dimension of flair to the tracks, and which is why I'm really excited to have him on for the live band, as long as he'll be part of it. The big thing about the live band is that I'm very hesitant to even bring somebody on as members, because so many people have been and are just kind of here for the moment and then gone for the next. That's been my problem ever since I tried building a band. And even with Placate the Masses, we did a small tour in the summer of 2017, and we had to get temp members for that tour. And it's just really hard. It's always been hard for me to find people that have who love the Lord, are really good at their music craft, their instrument, and being dedicated to it. And when I got people that are willing to go for broke like I am, then I'm more willing to say that this is the band, not a live band. This is the band. But until then, I'll say FireBrand is primarily me, and these other guys are just along for the ride.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely understandable as far as that goes, because it's very hard to get people that are as dedicated as you want them to be. Tell me a little bit about the new record, and what you're recording now. and then share a little bit about the last project that's actually out there that people can like get access to.
All right. So, and last project, you talking about maybe the last single I released or the last
Yeah,
video?
the last single, the thing that you just put out recently that they can get to.
Okay. Yeah. So, most recent single that I put out is a song called Fragment. It's a very quick track, but I think you'll be satisfied nonetheless if you're somebody that's just going into hearing it and you never have. Fragment is one of those upbeat tracks where it's like, you know, it's got fast double kick bass. It's got those really driving guitars that feel very old school metal with some nice synths on top of it and in your face vocals. But that's something that a lot of people have responded well to, and that is available on all digital platforms, including my website, FireBrandCybermetal.com. And it's got a music video along with it as well. First legit music video that I've put out in this capacity. And right now there's a single that's just getting touched up and getting ready for release that will be coming out late October. And it's going to be the title track for the upcoming album called Beat the Machine. Overall, the album Beat the Machine, I'm touching on the overall theme of, you know, the machine being that there is, you know, this world's obviously in a broken world order, a cycle, and it's speaking to the spiritual reality of just the fact that we live in a fallen world. And much like, you know, machines have gears and rotors and stuff like that just go around and around and around in a circle, and they do the same thing over again. So it's just like how it is with these broken cycles that we all find in our lives to one degree or another. And Beat the Machine is in conceptually speaking to breaking free from those, and touching on different types of things to break free from, whether it be addiction or mental illness, or it's some sort of vice that I think we all can relate to. And the songs come, you know, from a practical level as well as a spiritual level, because the gospel is powerful enough to touch both areas. And so that's what the overall theme of Beat the Machine is. That's the scarlet thread that runs through the songs to one degree or another.
Okay. All right, great. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Nothing that really comes to mind as far as closing. I definitely want to thank you for having me on, and thank everybody for, you know, who's tuned in after the fact and, you know, is watching this on your site and wherever else it's posted. Thank you guys for being part of this, and anybody who would come to support me from this point forward. Thank you guys very much.
What's your Facebook?
Facebook is FireBrand Electro Metal.
Okay. Any other social platforms?
I'm on Instagram as well. Same name, same handle, and everything. I've tried to make all of my social platforms unified in their name, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and they all have the same name so that I can be found as the easiest.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thank you very much, and I appreciate you taking time.